She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman.
So we're not just discussing Ellen being cruel. We're discussing a system, a chain of command, an entire machine.
This way. Epstein was Pinocchio, and she was Geppetto. The guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money. He had her contacts. But Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein.
But here's what everyone keeps missing. And this is the story that will flip everything upside down. For 20 years, Ellen DeGeneres constructed an empire on one simple message. Be kind. That was the whole thing. Kindness. The entire image, the whole daytime TV throne, the fortune exceeding $100 million, it all rested on that single foundation. But then the ground shifted. In 2020, the mask didn't just slide off, it completely broke apart.
You lack all of those qualities. You lack them all. And you are not remorseful. You are not even sorry about what's happening. You're just sorry you got caught.
Rob Schneider was speaking boldly and directly. And when he sat across from Megyn Kelly to discuss Ellen, he delivered something that hit harder than any gossip magazine headline ever could.
Oh, yeah, that's disingenuous.
1 second, one video clip. That was enough for the carefully built kingdom to begin falling apart. But what followed next was even more disturbing. Once people began sharing, they simply could not stop. Thousands of accounts came rushing out. Past employees, show guests, people who had walked the corridors of her program.
Her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, oh, I had this birthday party, and Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, like, no, I did invite you, Ellen. That's not what happened. And Ellen had blown her off. Yeah. And then tried to play the victim on the set with her. Anyway, it led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person. And all these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person. So she eventually got canceled, but now she's coming back. She's got a Netflix special. That's the right response.
Yeah.
She's got a Netflix special. And here's the capper. On the promo, and apparently there's now articles out about from people who have seen the preview. She plays the victim. And she says, poor me. And she actually has the nerve to say that
Consider that for a moment. A rule, zero eye contact. In 2024, that's not leadership. That's mental domination. That's the behavioral pattern of someone who functions through terror and authority. And Rob Schneider connected everything immediately.
You were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person.
Ellen isn't merely being exposed for being cruel. She's being exposed for being disconnected from reality, for acting like a sufferer when she's valued at $500 million, for claiming oppression when she literally commanded a media empire. But what Ricky Gervais was about to disclose would push this entire story into something far, far more sinister. Here's what's been murmured in the shadows of the internet for years, what podcast hosts are nervous to state openly, what reporters refuse to approach. Ricky Gervais possesses knowledge, and he's finished pretending otherwise.
And she actually has the nerve to say that she was run.
Ricky didn't say this on some obscure conspiracy program. He stated it openly on camera, and then he pushed even further.
She's a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman.
Her lawyers have said Ghislaine Maxwell is not a Jeffrey Epstein, that she has been a victim of media spin.
They're doing their job, but I know that woman. I've known her really well.
Ever existed. So we're not discussing a sufferer here. We're discussing an architect, a calculated mind, someone who managed the entire operation. And if Ghislaine Maxwell was that influential, that deeply embedded in entertainment and media, then who else was tied to that network? This is where Ellen's identity enters the discussion, and this is where everything becomes deeply unsettling. Ellen didn't reach her position by chance. She climbed through Hollywood's ranks during a particular period, the 90s and 2000s, the identical era when Ghislaine Maxwell was weaving herself into American media, entertainment, and elite communities. They functioned within the same universe. Consider the individuals Ellen surrounded herself with. Consider who she invited onto her program. Consider who she was photographed beside at gatherings. Now, consider Ghislaine's connections. Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, didn't simply operate a newspaper empire. He controlled McGraw-Hill, the textbook corporation that shaped an entire generation of Americans. He maintained intelligence ties. He possessed damaging information on governments. He wielded influence that extended far beyond surface-level fame. And when Robert Maxwell perished, his children inherited something tremendously valuable: relationships, a blueprint, a network.
Put it this way. Epstein was Pinocchio and she was Geppetto. The guy controlling
Pulling the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money. He had her contacts. But Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
Ghislaine didn't emerge from nothing. She inherited a framework, a method of operating, a method of quieting people, a method of constructing power structures that appear legitimate externally but function under entirely different principles beneath. And Ellen was constructing her own empire using that exact same blueprint. Let's examine Anne Heche. Anne Heche wasn't simply Ellen's former partner. Anne Heche was someone who understood Ellen profoundly, personally. She inhabited that universe. She witnessed what unfolded behind closed doors. And after 20 years of remaining silent, Anne chose to speak.
This baton passing shows that this is a generational thing. And in the case of Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's children, at least the ones that were close to him, because you have two that sort of splintered off from the larger Maxwell clan, but are very open that, after he died, they were trying to figure out how to rebuild his empire and using his Rolodex of contacts to rebuild that. And they did, in doing so, you have Ian and Kevin doing all this interesting financial stuff after, their father's death. And then the twins, Isabel and Christine, make this search engine.
20 years, that's how long Anne Heche stayed quiet. And when she ultimately began speaking, she wasn't being unclear.
Into a next step, hopefully. And hopefully I have some more intelligence, I know I do, around it because I've studied it to be able to communicate a little bit better about what happened 20 years ago and the fact that it's taken us 20 years to be able to be at a point where we can listen to the truth again.
Anne is directly describing Ellen's fixation with fortune, with authority, with material accumulation. That's what destroyed their relationship. That's what defined Ellen's true character. Not compassion, not affection, obsession. But then Anne continued even further.
You like your money because that's why I broke up with you. Do you like sitting on your piles of cash? Because guess what? It gets you exactly where you are. And by the way, baby, it's what you wanted then, and I hope you're liking it now. Cheers.
Anne is describing emotional and professional manipulation. Ellen wasn't simply cruel. She was suffocating. She wanted to dictate Anne's values, Anne's ambitions, Anne's entire life direction. And when Anne refused to comply, what occurred? Ellen sabotaged her. Anne Heche explicitly revealed that Ellen weaponized her Hollywood influence to damage Anne's profession, to create obstacles for landing roles, to isolate her professionally. This is the identical silencing strategy that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein employed. This is the identical control structure.
Of money, or you broke up with her because...
I broke up with her because her goal was to have a lot of money and mine was to find love and hers was I want 60 billion. Good luck. Our forks are never going to meet. The further we stay on with this, the further we will be apart.
Okay. She didn't live in that loving kindness.
Rob is communicating something significant here. Ellen isn't simply a cruel individual, she's functioning from a position of profound bitterness. And bitterness, when left completely unchecked, generates patterns of domination, manipulation, and silencing. It's the identical bitterness that fuels abusers. Then Ellen did something astonishing. She appeared on Netflix. She produced a comedy special. And rather than genuinely apologizing, she transformed the entire controversy into entertainment.
I mean, there's certainly no lack of, I don't sense any humility.
No.
In that.
No. And no one cares that now she's dealing with chickens. It's like, all right,
You're a normal $450 million person.
And by the way, I guarantee you she's
Who's
worth
taking
a
care
lot
of her
more.
chickens? I guarantee, what's that? You guarantee what?
She's worth a lot more than $450 million.
Her art alone.
And like those talk show hosts.
Her devil-worshipping art alone.
It's just, it's too much. I can't stand these rich celebrities who want us to feel sorry for them. We don't, right? It's like all those you saw, like Julia Roberts on the Oprah special with Kamala.
Do you recognize what she's executing? She's admitting that she was cruel, but she's framing it as humorous, as ridiculous, as something that occurred to her, not something she deliberately did. And then she escalated further.
Out of show business. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, because I'm mean. Yeah. Yeah, you can't be mean and be in show business. No, they'll kick you out.
This is manipulation. This is repackaging legitimate criticism as irrational hostility. This is a suffering narrative deployed by someone valued at $450 million. A producer who collaborated with Ellen confronted her directly.
I was in therapy for a while trying to deal with all the hatred that was coming at me, and at one point my therapist said, "Ellen, where do you get this idea that everyone hates you?" And I said, well, New York Times, Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, Us Weekly. I think Elmo may have said something recently on an episode of Sesame.
Ellen was accepting absolutely no responsibility. She was sweetening an atmosphere built entirely on fear. That's not a professional environment. That's a dominant structure. And Ellen's special addressed none of that honestly. It downplayed it. It ridiculed it. It literally constructed jokes about cruelty while standing on a Netflix platform collecting millions. Robin and Megan weren't accepting any of it.
Ellen was not taking responsibility at all. She was sugarcoating.
The sarcasm is crushing here because it highlights the fundamental contradiction. Ellen isn't a sufferer. Ellen is a beneficiary of power systems, and she's exploiting her platform, her wealth, and her continued influence to attempt rewriting history. But rewriting history is precisely what Ghislaine Maxwell attempted. It's precisely what powerful individuals do when they want to preserve control. But there exists one moment that crystallizes everything about Ellen's character. One moment that reveals the cruelty embedded in her choices. Mariah Carey. In 2008, Mariah appeared on Ellen's program while expecting, but she hadn't announced it publicly yet. She wasn't prepared.
And she actually has the nerve to say that she was run out of Hollywood. This person
with she with $100 million in her pocket.
$450 million, according to Forbes. That's a low estimate.
Yeah.
Because so now she's out there saying, I was run out of Hollywood. She's actually reportedly complaining about how hard it is for women in America with the double standards.
Look at Oprah, how hard it is for her.
Oh, she's got, like 10 houses, Ellen DeGeneres?
Michelle Obama, look how hard it is for women in America. They're hurting.
They're going to let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows. Nastiness, that's their bread and butter.
Mariah declined. She had no desire to discuss it. She had her personal, private motivations, but Ellen refused to listen. Ellen applied pressure. Ellen converted it into a spectacle. Ellen even presented Mariah with champagne as a method to force a response from her. If Mariah declined, the suggestion was unmistakable. Everyone would discover the truth on live television without permission.
The other thing is that people are saying that you're pregnant. There's rumors. Don't discuss that.
Let that truly register. Mariah had experienced pregnancy loss. She was in the delicate beginning stages of expecting. She explicitly refused to announce it, and Ellen forced the revelation on live television purely for entertainment. Shortly following, Mariah suffered a miscarriage. Evil. That's the term being applied, not inappropriate, not thoughtless, evil. Rob Schneider grasped exactly what this moment uncovered about Ellen's true character.
Mariah Carey was on the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2008, and Ellen obviously has to pry and bring up the pregnancy rumors that were circulating at the time. She didn't just do that, though. In order to pressure an answer out of her, she made her drink champagne live on TV.
And then the other thing is that people are saying that you're pregnant. There's rumors. Don't discuss that. All right. Well, you don't.
Mariah didn't want to release that she was pregnant yet because she has had a history of having miscarriages, and it was way too early on. Shortly after the interview, Mariah suffered a miscarriage. She talks all about this in some interviews from 2020 and her book that came out, but that's honestly a very evil thing for someone like Ellen to do with her platform. And Mariah continuously brings up that how uncomfortable that moment made her. Whether or not it was real champagne doesn't really matter. It's the fact that she was pressuring her into answering.
What Rob is expressing is that Ellen lacks the capacity for authentic regret. She possesses no humility. She operates from pure entitlement. She exploits her authority to achieve what she desires, regardless of who suffers. This is the identical operating system that Ghislaine Maxwell utilized. This is the identical control structure. Now, we're going to venture somewhere most individuals fear to go. Because when you examine the timeline, when you examine who understood what, who was discussing what, a pattern surfaces. Anne Hetch was preparing to expose Ellen. Anne was conducting interviews. Anne was preparing to release information about what transpired between them, about how Ellen had sabotaged her, about the emotional and professional destruction. And then, in August 2022, just 2 months after Ellen's program concluded, Anne Heche was involved in a collision, a devastating collision. The official statement declared it accidental, but the recorded footage suggests a completely different story.
I mean, there's certainly no lack of, I don't sense any humility.
No.
In that.
No. And no one cares that now she's dealing with chickens. It's like, all right,
You're a normal $450 million person.
And by the way, I guarantee you she's
Who's
worth
taking
a
care
lot
of her
more.
chickens? I guarantee, what's that? You guarantee what?
She's worth a lot more than $450 million.
Her art alone.
And like those talk show hosts.
Her devil-worshipping art alone.
It's just, it's too much. I can't stand these rich celebrities who want us to feel sorry for them. We don't, right? It's like all those you saw, like Julia Roberts on the Oprah.
Minutes after appearing completely composed, Anne was driving erratically. The examiner confirmed no alcohol in her system, no active substances, merely traces of previous use. So why was she driving as though she was escaping something?
Standing in front of the house where actress Anne Heche crashed her car back in August 2022. A crash that has left more questions than answers. That morning, Anne walked into a hair shop in Venice, California. The owner said she walked in, saw a red wig up on the shelf, wanted the red wig. He told her it wasn't styled. She said no worries, made the purchase. He recognized who she was and asked for a selfie. They took a selfie together, which is still up on his Instagram. The owner of the wig shop, Richard Glass, said that she was completely normal, didn't seem impaired, she wasn't slurring her words, thought the interaction seemed completely normal.
45 minutes trapped inside a burning vehicle. The official account states she was unconscious from smoke inhalation. But then there's the aerial footage.
Anne's car was captured on doorbell camera footage, zooming down this street at an extremely high rate of speed. As you can see, there's a stop sign here. She blew completely through that stop sign, somehow managed not to hit any oncoming traffic. This is a very busy street, and plowed straight into this home right here, and was trapped so deep inside that the house and the car caught fire, and she wasn't able to be rescued for 45 minutes.
If Anne was unconscious, how did she rise up? How did she attempt to escape the stretcher? The official account contains contradictions, and these contradictions matter because Anne Heche was preparing to speak. She was preparing to expose Ellen. Then 4 months following Anne's collision, Stephen Tewitt, boss, passed away. Stephen Tewitt, boss, was Ellen's executive producer. He was cherished. He was the emotional core of her program. He was the human warmth within a machine revealed to be cold and controlling. And after the 2020 controversy erupted, Tewitt faced enormous pressure. Why? Because he publicly defended Ellen even after the toxic workplace accusations emerged. People were furious at him. People experienced betrayal because of him.
The disturbing part of this case is aerial helicopter footage showed Anne Heche being put onto a stretcher. You can see a body in some type of bag on a stretcher being wheeled into the back of an ambulance, when all of a sudden the zipper breaks open and you see Anne Heche emerge suddenly out of this body bag, what looks like a body bag, and prop herself up as if she's trying to get off the stretcher or get out of the bag. They push her back down and she's put into the back of the ambulance.
Was cornered. He remained devoted to Ellen, but the public had completely turned against her. He was enduring the social consequences of his association with her. Then he perished. The official statement declared it self-inflicted. A letter was discovered. A letter. Multiple investigative journalists have stated that this letter pointed directly at Ellen as the source of his mental deterioration. Whether accurate or not, Twitch was caught between his loyalty to Ellen and the world's condemnation of her, and he shattered beneath that weight. This is the pattern that Ricky Gervais and Rob Schneider are suggesting. This is what causes people to whisper Ghislaine Maxwell's name when discussing Ellen, because Ghislaine and Epstein also had individuals surrounding them perishing. Individuals who possessed too much knowledge, individuals who were silenced. Virginia Giuffre was a prominent accuser. She was among the few willing to speak openly about Epstein and Ghislaine. She pursued legal action against Prince Andrew. She fought back. And then she perished. The official statement declared suicide.
After the 2020 toxic workplace scandal, Twitch had come under immense pressure for publicly supporting Ellen. Quote, people were looking at him like, why are you still supporting this woman? End quote. He stated that he believed that Twitch's mental health had deteriorated significantly in the period following the scandal.
An accuser perishes. A witness perishes. A producer perishes. A former partner preparing to expose you perishes. Are these coincidences or are they components of a deliberate pattern? Now I'm going to present something that might appear far-fetched, but Ricky Gervais raised this point and other investigators have highlighted it. Ellen's stage setting. It bears a striking resemblance to the design of Epstein Island.
Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew's accused her dead at 41 by suicide. She who accused Epstein and Prince Andrew of suicide when she was underage died at suicide at 41 near Gabby, Australia, with her family stating, "It is with utterly broken hearts that we announced that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia."
Identical palm trees, identical furnishings, identical color arrangement. Now, does that establish anything? Not conclusively. Could it be coincidence? Possibly. But when you're constructing a narrative about someone's ties to a network, these elements carry significance because they suggest awareness. They suggest exposure. They suggest familiarity. Ellen's residence has been examined by individuals who monitor symbolic references, and what they discovered are connections to Marina Abramovic, the performance artist recognized for spirit cooking ceremonies. This is another image of Ellen inside her home. She's trimming her mother's hair, but what is that image? I'm not claiming Ellen is definitively involved in symbolic practices. I'm stating that there exist visual and symbolic connections between her world and the world of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. And in this era of information, these connections are becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. There's one additional element that Ricky Gervais introduced that has been circulating in investigative communities for years: coded terminology in correspondence. According to Ricky, within the Epstein documents, there are references to jerky, pizza, babies, and other seemingly harmless expressions. But according to online investigators, these represent coded terminology for something entirely different.
Know that Ellen DeGeneres' stage set is exactly the same as on Epstein Island, with all the couches, the same colour, the same soft furnishings, palm trees, window, everything to the T. And I'm like...
Ricky is expressing, "I genuinely hope this isn't accurate. I'm presenting what's being alleged, but I'm hoping deeply it isn't real." That's the sentiment here.
This is another picture of Ellen in her home. She's cutting her mother's hair, but what is that picture?
Congress is addressing this. Federal investigators are examining this. This is no longer simply internet speculation. It's entering formal scrutiny. Now, is Ellen referenced in those identical coded correspondences? According to online investigators, yes. Her identity surfaces in Epstein-related documents. Is she specifically referenced in coded messages? That remains less definitive. But the fact that her identity appears at all, combined with everything else we've examined, constructs a picture. After the fallout, after the years away from public attention, Ellen is attempting a return. Pixar is inviting her back to voice Dory in a new Finding Nemo short. Dory, the character celebrated for the line, "Just keep swimming." The cheerful, forgetful fish who moves beyond pain and trauma without dwelling on it. The contradiction is almost too precise because Ellen wants everyone to just keep swimming, to forget, to move forward, to stop investigating her past, her connections, her behavior. But Rob Schneider and Ricky Gervais aren't swimming away. They're swimming directly toward the truth. Let me establish something clearly. We don't possess definitive evidence that Ellen DeGeneres is directly implicated in criminal behavior. We don't have court records connecting her to Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein. What we possess is a pattern of cruelty on her program, documented, verified, a pattern of silencing individuals who attempted to expose her. Anne Hetch being the most prominent case, a pattern of operating from wealth, authority, and entitlement while claiming victimhood, a pattern of connections to the identical circles as Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, and a pattern of individuals surrounding her encountering suspicious deaths or circumstances. Is this evidence of a conspiracy? No, but it's sufficient to generate serious questions. It's sufficient to justify thorough investigation. It's sufficient to explain why Ricky Gervais, someone with nothing to gain and everything to sacrifice by making these statements, went on record and declared Ghislaine Maxwell's evil exceeded even Epstein's.
The babies, the code words in the emails, literal emails of Epstein and Bill Gates. Like, these are known entities starting to talk about jerky. And then they're talking about the intestines of babies. They're talking about cream cheese. Like, I welcome anyone to prove me wrong because I hoped to fucking hell this is not. When he knew they were coming after him, they knew they were going to come arrest him. He ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid, which is... What? Which is how you would dispose
Right.
of babies. And there are mentions, and now Congress is actually speaking about it. They did this week, spoke about Zora Ranch and how there's so many mentions of bury them in Zora Ranch, leave them in Zora Ranch. Now that's 7,000 acres of land that Jeffrey Epstein owns in New Mexico, and it's actively working right now.
Well, I think everyone. I will say, like, the resentment, I think everyone should have a chance for reconciliation. I don't think Jesus exempted anybody. And so I do, while it does, because I have been allowed back in, but I don't hold any grievance and resentment. It's very important. And I would just say for Ellen, the resentment, you have to know, you have to get over resentment to whatever addiction or addictive qualities happen. To get over it, you have to deal with resentment and address it, and then otherwise you're going to fall back into the same pattern.
Because he possesses knowledge and he's attempting to alert people. Rob is expressing that everyone deserves an opportunity at redemption, including Ellen, but redemption demands genuine regret, authentic transformation, real accountability. Ellen has demonstrated absolutely none of that. So where does this position us? Ellen is attempting a comeback. She's relocating overseas for portions of the year. She's maintaining a quieter existence away from public attention. Her Netflix special attempted to reshape the narrative, but it only confirmed what people already understood. She's not genuinely remorseful. She's simply regretful she was discovered. Meanwhile, the Epstein files continue emerging. More identities are being revealed. More connections are being uncovered. Congress is investigating. And when those complete files surface, if Ellen's identity appears in any meaningful capacity, the conversation will transform dramatically. Because currently we're operating on allegations, patterns, and the testimony of individuals like Ricky Gervais and Rob Schneider. But what if documentation exists? What if there are correspondences, financial records, travel logs? The concern isn't simply that Ellen might have been involved in something darker than we currently understand. The concern is that if Ellen was implicated, then how many other celebrities are? How deeply does this network actually extend? That's why individuals are terrified to discuss this. That's why mainstream media refuses to approach it. That's why Ricky Gervais sounds genuinely disturbed when he discusses Ghislaine Maxwell. Because once you begin pulling on this thread, the entire fabric of Hollywood might completely unravel, and absolutely nobody is prepared for that.